Last week saw a massive beat up on Donald Trump, which, get used to it folks, is pretty much going to be the norm for the next couple of years. Last week it was the accusation that Donald Trump is an anti-Semite because he hosted a dinner with a couple of individuals who, yes, are clearly anti-Semitic. The Guardian were quick to call the dinner out for what it is, whatever that means. This led to senior Republicans in Congress suggesting Trump is not fit to be president again.
Let me just say there is no room in the Republican Party for anti-Semitism or white supremacy. And anyone meeting with people advocating that point of view, in my judgment, are highly unlikely to ever be elected President of the United States.
What a joke. Clearly he was referring to Trump. That was Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate. McConnell, it is worth pointing out, is no great fan of Donald Trump's. And indeed, according to Kerry Wakefield in the Spectator Australia, McConnell was one of the Republican leaders who deserved to bear the real responsibility for the poor showing of the Republicans in the recent midterm elections, not Donald Trump. Quote from Kerry, "In the disappointment of the early results, the anti-Trump brigade raced out of the blocks to blame their favourite bugbear," she wrote. Establishment mouthpiece Karl Rove blamed candidate quality, quote, "knuckleheads with strange beliefs, many of whom came courtesy of Trump." Kerry Wakefield then points out how fallacious this Trump-blaming argument really is. Quote, "Inconveniently, 216 Trump-endorsed candidates have so far won their races, while a mere 19 lost." Kerry Wakefield then points the finger of blame squarely at what she dubbed the McLeadership problem. Quote, "Laterally, a new explanation for the poor results is emerging, that the Republican leadership team of careerists, Mitch McConnell, who we just saw, and Kevin McCarthy, thought they had it in the bag and so played venal politics to maximize their personal caucus votes rather than seats. And they did this by directing funds to weaken the Trump candidates and shore up their own positions." So, no real surprise then that McConnell has jumped on the Trump is an anti-Semite bandwagon. Now, Donald Trump may be many, many things, but an anti-Semite is not one of them. The bizarre allegation stems from an equally bizarre dinner that Donald Trump hosted impromptu just before Thanksgiving with the famous or infamous rapper called Kanye West, calls himself Ye West or something now, plus his bloke called Nick Fuentes, who is a repulsive and vile anti-Semite. It was a dinner supposedly organised by Milo Yiannopoulos, the firebrand provocateur who I've interviewed here on Outsiders. Milo Yiannopoulos caused a storm during his Australian tour by announcing upon arrival that the Sydney Opera House was the ugliest building he had ever seen. His comments generated all the requisite headlines, outrage, to guarantee his tour was a success. He's a provocateur. I have never heard Milo Yiannopoulos utter a single anti-Semitic word. He describes himself as a celibate, gay, Catholic, conservative, Greek, Jew, who was a keen supporter of Trump, but then went off him. Yiannopoulos is now working as an advisor to Kanye West, and it looks like that this is what he was up to here, trying to grab some headlines for Kanye, who, as I said, calls himself Ye now, and who is clearly anti-Semitic, if not actually in the middle of some weird kind of mental breakdown. But back to Donald Trump's ill-advised dinner.
As Ye was getting canceled for his virulently anti-Semitic remarks, he and Donald Trump were in greater contact. They had been friends. And at a certain point, they agreed to have a dinner. It wound up being the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Now, Ye, sort of unbeknownst to Trump, who apparently wasn't paying attention, according to sources that we've spoken to, was planning to run for president, and Trump didn't know it. And according to people who are associated with Ye, they had decided to come there and sort of confront Trump and say, hey, you've kind of lost your way in the Republican Party. You're not standing up for the January Sixers who are, incarcerated and who stand trial. You need to get them more money. You're not the same insurgent candidate you were in 2016. You're an establishment bore. And then Ye also dropped the bomb on Donald Trump saying, I'm going to run for president. Why don't you be my running mate? Which apparently angered Donald Trump. And the dinner eventually ended.
All fairly Looney Tunes crazy stuff, but things then went from bad to worse.
According to both sides, Trump didn't know who Nick Fuentes was when he met Ye and three others, including Fuentes, the white nationalist in this case. Nevertheless, the former president invited everyone to have dinner with him out on the patio. This was widely seen. It soon leaked, and now Donald Trump's campaign is in total damage control mode.
Which brings us back to Milo Yiannopoulos, who is now claiming credit for the whole excruciating event.
They had planned Milo Yiannopoulos, according to him, Nick Fuentes, according to him, and Ye to sort of spring this trap on Trump. Karen Giorno said she didn't know much about that. She was just sort of an accidental guest who wound up being a chauffeur that wound up at dinner.
Remember, this impromptu dinner all took place at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's home, which is also a kind of resort and a private club. Kanye West, Ye, is a rap superstar. He's the former husband of Kim Kardashian and used to be a great supporter and friend of Donald Trump's. So it's not all that surprising that he and his entourage managed to be admitted to the club. As the Secret Service have said, they are not in charge of the facility there. All the evidence points to this being a setup and a trap that Trump naively fell into. But all the kind of shenanigans aside, there is really only one question that deserves scrutiny, and that is the claim that Donald Trump, through association, can now be branded an anti-Semite. I was highly impressed by an article that appeared in the American Spectator on Wednesday by Rabbi Dov Fisher, Vice President of the Coalition of Jewish Values, who also writes for the Wall Street Journal and the Jerusalem Post. Rabbi Fisher swiftly dispenses with the two genuine anti-Semites or Jew haters at that dinner the night with Trump. Then he turns his attention to Donald Trump and introduces a term I was hitherto unfamiliar with, a philosemite. As Rabbi Fisher writes, Donald John Trump is a philosemite. You don't hear that term often because not so many people, other than Bible Christians who believe that Genesis 12:3 is the word of God, love Jews. But that's what a philosemite is. He or she loves Jews. He then goes on. I do not know why Donald Trump loves Jews. My personal theory is because his father, Fred, who was one of the great philosemites of the prior generation, and who even donated property to a Jewish congregation for them to have a synagogue, taught young Donald that part of the Trump family legacy is to love Jews. End of quote. All of which is interesting to speculate about. But then Rabbi Fisher delivers the knockout blow, or rather 26 knockout blows to anyone who ever dares call Donald Trump an anti-Semite or question his loyalty to and love of the Jews. 26 of them, but here's just a few, and I'm quoting specifically from Dov Fisher. Quote, when others refused to hire Jews, Trump did. He opened the restricted Mar-a-Lago private club to blacks and Jews when he originally bought it. After nearly half a century of broken promises by other presidents, Donald Trump formally declared and recognized United Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Donald Trump moved America's Israel embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Donald Trump recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. He recognized the permanent legality of all Jewish communities and cities, i.e. settlements, in Judea and Samaria as legal in all situations that Israel's own courts regard them as legal. That's Donald Trump. Donald Trump cut off hundreds of millions of dollars funding for the Abbas government in the Palestinian Authority on the grounds that they pay monthly stipends, also known as pay to slay, to families of Arab terrorists who murder Jews or otherwise perpetrate acts of terror. Now, I have covered that issue extensively here on Outsiders and in the Spectator Australia with David Adler. Trump, back to Rabbi Fisher. Donald Trump closed down the PLO office in Washington. He closed down America's long-standing Palestine consulate in Jerusalem. Donald Trump pulled the United States out of the anti-Semitic UN Human Rights Council. Donald Trump cut off $300 million in funding that America had been sending to UNRWA, the United Nations agency regarded by many as virulently anti-Semitic, which runs schools in places like Gaza, where Arab Muslim children have been filmed being taught to hate Jews and even to murder Jews. Again, I have covered that issue extensively here on Outsiders. Donald Trump brought about the Abraham Accords that induced several leading Arab Muslim countries for the first time ever to enter into true peace agreements with Israel without Israel ceding an inch of Jewish territory in Judea and Samaria. Moreover, Donald Trump issued an executive order on combating anti-Semitism to protect Jewish college students from the overt Jew hatred now rampant on so many American campuses. And he launched, Donald Trump, investigations into anti-Semitism at campuses like Rutgers in New Jersey. I carry on quoting from the rabbi. Donald Trump deported the last Nazi war criminal known to be hiding in America. He signed into law a bill making it easier for Holocaust victims to reclaim stolen property. He ended the disastrous Iran deal and implemented crushing sanctions against Iran. He signed the Taylor Force Act. He knocked out Qasem Soleimani. He rubbed out Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He imposed sanctions on the International Criminal Court for unfairly and illegally investigating Israel. And he said at his 2019 State of the Union address, quote, "We must never ignore the vile poison of anti-Semitism or those who spread its venomous creed. With one voice, we must confront this hatred and everywhere it occurs," end of quote. That, says Rabbi Fisher, is the definition of a lifelong philosemite. I say again, criticize Donald Trump to your heart's content if it makes you feel better. But no former US president has such a phenomenal list of achievements, and that's just his effect on the Middle East. Just imagine what he could do in a second term. By the way, I showed that provocative cover about David Adler's Pay to Slay story, and you will find it and many equally provocative, insightful, and of course amusing covers I've got it here, Sarah Dudley's new book, Take Cover, How the Spectator Australia Fought the Culture Wars. Well, there's only a handful of the special hardback copies, double signed by both myself and the author, plus some other goodies, perfect for Santa's stocking. Go to rowandean.com.au and give the folks a treat this Christmas.